guess I'll publish this. Oh no, the window's too small. There we are. Publish that. And I'm live. Hooray. We missed out on Wednesday because I had work to do, and my work involved narrating a crap ton of videos. So by the time stream time rolled around, I was completely burned out. Literally couldn't talk, so I skipped it. But I'm back, and today I don't have to narrate any video other than this one. So we're going to go ahead and tell the world that we are streaming, or that I'm streaming. You guys probably aren't. That'd be a little strange, watching a stream while streaming. Yo, dog. I'm streaming game dev. Gonna do people stuff. Let's see if I can get this window to behave. All the windows are shaped funny. When I turned off my monitors, Windows decided that it didn't need to make sense. And it just randomly rearranged all the windows without resizing them. All right. Where were we? I haven't had a full drink of coffee or anything yet, so I am a little bit slow, but that's okay. What we were going to do today is I think we're going to work on some hair. I built a whole bunch of just placeholder skin textures. Excuse me. And I think they're going to be fine for just placeholder purposes, but we don't have any hair, and it's really tough to feel what sort of character we're looking at with no hair. Now, I'm not very good at modeling hair, but I figure what I'll do is I'll model it here on stream, and then I'll have a whole bunch of people complain about how I did it wrong, and that's how I'll learn how to do it. So if you have any advice on how to model hair, just let me know, and I will, keep it in mind. So I have modeled hair many times before, and the reason I say I'm terrible at it is because every time I do it, it looks just awful. But as I understand it, the only way I've managed to do it decently is I can go into ZBrush and I can build the hair, but that never looks good at less than maybe 30,000 polys, and that's too many polys. I can't handle that many polys. They're heavy. So we are going to do it in the way that's generally recommended, which is using hair mass and flyaways. Now the problem is that hair mass and flyaways require textures, which I don't have, but we're going to go ahead and give it a shot. The Rowland stopped in to say good evening. Yep, good evening. I suppose that means that you're in Europe somewhere, because over here it is barely afternoon. So we're just going to go ahead and plug in a generic mesh for our head. That's a cube. I meant to put in a circle. My bad. A sphere. That one. That'll do. Why are you so far zoomed out? Don't be shy. Here we are. So I know that a lot of people, what they do when they're creating hair is they clone the skull. But I don't really see any reason to do that unless you're doing something very specific. Because the hair mass is opaque. It doesn't actually have to hit the skull. And to me, it makes more sense to just have it be a generic shape and then pull it and prod it until it works. So we're just going to apply that location and scale, and then we're going to do some sculpting, and we're going to try and pull it into something of a generic hair sort of shape. And for that, we're going to want to, at least temporarily, turn on mirroring. If I can remember how to do that, which I might not be able to. There we are. Oh, it's already on. Hooray. Yep, good. And that's not actually the brush we want to use. We could use grab. Now, the problem with grab is that it doesn't do dynamic topo, or at least it doesn't cause the dynamic topo to fire. But that's okay, because we don't actually want any higher res topology at the moment. This is the right level for our generic hair. And so, as I said before, I'm not an expert at hair, but what we're going to do is we're going to create a very, very basic shortcut. The sort of cut that's kind of a unisex pseudo-military cut. That would make sense in space, because that's where these people are. Later on, we'll go back and we'll add in more types of hair, like curly cuts and that sort of stuff. But for now, we're just going to work with the most basic shaping tools and get ourselves a generic shaped shortcut. The skull is much taller than I thought it was, so we're going to have to pull up the front a little bit, and that's fine. I'm getting a bouffant going. Oh, that's... no. So if this is the sort of generic shortcut you get, the only problem with this, Therolan says, I wanted to pop in and say I figured out how mixin systems worked and it saved his life, or their life. I had to do some reading on C# and how getComponent really works, but it was worth it because inventory works. Yeah, I've been thinking about actually giving a video tutorial specifically about how getComponent works. It's not complicated, but if you're trying to figure out how to do something basic, that can be a stumbling stone, and I have seen that happen a couple of times where people misunderstand what it does. So that might be something I should do, create a video specifically on that. So anyway, thank you for coming by and telling me that my tutorials helped, because that's really always fantastic to hear. Now, the problem we're going to have here in Blender is that I don't have any textures, and that's really an issue, because without a texture, how am I supposed to actually have a proper mesh? Because the flyaways require transparency to even begin to understand them. So we don't have any such texture, and I guess the only thing we can do is make it. So before we get any further, I think we're going to have to build ourselves a hair texture. Now, in order to do that, I've got to pull up my art program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch you over to Phoenix Write for a second while I pull it up. Objection! Because that involves loading a lot of crap. I don't want to have any news from the art program owners, no. That stuff always appears at the worst possible moment. It's like, why do you have such bad timing all the time? All right, so that's 1024 by 1024. And if we go over here and then open this and then go into materials, create a new directory. No, that's not a new directory. There we are. Create that one called hair. We'll go inside. We'll show it in Explorer. All of this stuff could be put on the screen, I suppose, but it involves a lot of me wandering around my computer. And I actually do have a job that involves not showing absolutely everything. So we're going to just go ahead and make sure that I don't accidentally leak things I'm not supposed to leak. Placeholder. There we are. So now we can go back in here and pull that up, take it. There we are. All right, so now we're back. And let's go ahead and create ourselves a hair texture. Now the key to this hair texture, that's a real squeaky thing. I'm going to use an actual art tool, tablet, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a hair texture. But the key to this hair texture is that there are two core types of texture we're going to need. We're going to need an opaque hair texture, and we're going to need a transparent hair texture. The opaque hair texture is for the body, and the transparent one is for the flyaways. And the body is, we can reuse both of them, but we may need more than one of each. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use a white brush, but we're going to paint out the back as kind of a dark gray here. There we are, so that we can see the brush. And we're going to be using white because that's something that is going to be something we can adjust the color of it. We can adjust the tint of it, and it'll be okay. Whereas if we actually colored it obviously orange or something, we would never be able to change that. Now, that said, every kind of hair does have its own texture, and it's something where you can't just get away with having nothing but this. Because if it's like blonde hair, then the dark areas aren't going to just be gray with blonde on top. They're going to be much, much browner than the blonde areas. And, you know, got stuff like that for a lot of different kinds of hair. So we can't just abstract it out like this. But we can get started like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the middle area, the middle of this texture here, this part, as the zone where the transparency is. So from both sides, we're going to just have this kind of zone. And what we're going to do is we're just going to paint a couple different kinds of fronds like this. It's very generic at this point, which is fine. Now the problem is that we're getting a lot of density that it doesn't actually exist. Because you can see how this looks like it has darker and lighter areas, but it does not. That is an illusion. What it actually looks like is that. It's pure, pale white. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have to backfill it a little bit later on. But this should work for now. And I'm going to switch over to this kind of... I wish that this brush didn't have such a quite a fast fall off. I wish it would be a little bit more patient. That's fine though. All right, so now we're going to do a bit of a fill-in. And the way we're going to do a fill-in is we're just going to copy this. Then we're going to hide it, and then we're going to just... I guess we can't hide it. Let's go ahead and just bring it down. And we're just going to fill the back ends of these so that they have the right sort of flavor to them. And then we'll just use a soft brush to erase away the parts that we don't want for now. It probably would make more sense if I hadn't done it this way and I had done it some other way instead. As I said, I'm not very great at hair. There we are. So now with these things as transparent, we are going to need to actually clear them out so that it is transparent. And that means we're just going to go in with a soft brush and take away the edges here. I think there's probably a better way to do it. In fact, I'm sure there is because I've done it better ways before. But I haven't had very much coffee yet. Speaking of which, let me go ahead and have a little sip. Sorry if you could hear that. Someone is talking. Hold on a moment. Let me pull things aside. That's not Bormax. It's Leormax. Leormax says hello. They have a green name that I have a hard time reading because the background of my chat window is the exact same value but gray. I never understood why Twitch chooses the background colors it chooses, but my apologies if I read your name wrong. It's not my intention. And now we're just going to soften this. Oop, too much softening up there. That's like this. And I would call that perfect, but it's obviously crap. That's fine. That's fine. We don't need it to be any good at the moment. We just need it to plan our basic setup. So you might have noticed that I basically divided this into quarters. So we've got the left quarter with the fronds, the right quarter with the heavy flyaways, and then we've got the lower area with the opaque areas, the opaque stuff. We can import that in here in theory. Let's go ahead and bring up a material and create a new material, which we'll call hair. Let me put away the drawing kit for a second. And I'm going to have to import the image in order to get it to work. Here it is. I actually don't know how this works, and I have some image files that I'm not allowed to show. So I'm going to turn you back to Phoenix Wright for a second. I should have done this without being on stream. I'm sorry about that. So we're just going to open the... Oh, it's in the right spot. Good. Let's go ahead and delete that. And then this. Okay. There we go. Pull you back into the screen stream. All right. So this is our texture. We're just going to show alpha so we don't forget it too much. Now, in order for this texture to be applied... so Blender materials have always been a little bit funny to me, but the problem is that every time I'm about to learn them, Blender comes out with a new sort. So I sort of started learning how to do Blender materials, and then Cycles came out, and I left for a couple years, and I came back, and I started learning how to do Cycles, and now Eevee's about to come out. So I'm just going to go ahead and half-ass it and say that this is supposed to influence the alpha and the color, and we're going to hope that that works. Obviously, however, we're going to need a little bit more information. Jojo Jet says, is this an Ace Attorney? No, I use the Ace Attorney guy because there are things on my computer, work things, that are in close proximity to these in terms of the directories they're in. So I just use him when I'm loading up things from my computer. This is not a Phoenix Wright stream. It's a me trying to get things to work stream. I'm modeling people, or hair at least. Let's create a sun. There we go. So you can see this creepy texture down here. It's not nearly as creepy in the game because I use a different set of textures. But the hair still has no visible setup for any of the things. That might be because the UV map is wrong. I'm just going to Smart UV project it for now. Yeah. So if we pull this aside, we can pull up a UV map like so. And you can see that this UV map is all over the place. If we were to grab all of this and then just shrink it down, we can get a different sort of shape. But here's the issue. We actually don't want these to be any smaller than they are. We just want them to be all in the lower half of the image. So to do that, we're just going to grab them and drag them around until they are in the lower half of the image. Jojo Jet says that the texture is Hawat. Yeah, this is the default MakeHuman texture for the skin. It's just that I don't have the whole body, and I remapped the texture to the texture for the head to a larger part of the UV map. So now the texture for the whole body is sprayed across the upper body, and it's pretty creepy. It looks like a monster, but it looks fine in the actual game, as you can see. So it's not a big deal. So this is just a very generic, it's just a hair setup that is totally unoptimized. Nothing about it is intended to actually look good at the moment. What we're going to do is we're going to delete the left half of the hair, left half of this thing, because we actually want it to be perfect mirror at the moment. No, you know what? I lied. Undo. No, that's fine. We'll do a perfectly mirrored one first, just to set it up right. Jojo Jet says, "Is this still the galactic line?" This is the people part. So as you may know, I did the first part of my development was to get the spaceships, and that's why I made the space debris game. Now we are on to the people part, and so this is much closer to what the galactic line will be. I just have to make sure that all the people stuff doesn't suck too bad. And that is a tough one, because I am not very good at hair. Let's go ahead and re-unmap this, or re-UV map this. And once again, we're going to need to bind it to the lower portion of this UV map. Now that was not the right button. That's the right button. That might be a little bit tall. Well, it doesn't really matter. I can always scale it later. These are just standalone bits. That's going to look great, I'm sure. So if we switch back to being able to see what we're looking at, you can see how what we've got here is a rather arbitrary set of vectored elements. This is not really a very good setup, but that's fine. We're just trying to get the basic shapes running right now. We can make this texture better, and we can change the UV mapping at a later date. Let's go ahead and make this person have a darker hair color. Doesn't seem to be taking for some reason. That's odd. Is this something that only gets No, it's not taking at all. Why is this diffuse not actually working? Is it because the texture's overriding it? That's not what I want. I want them to combine. I guess it doesn't matter. It's just Blender. Who cares what happens in Blender as long as the transparency is correct so I can see what I'm doing. Jojo Jet says, why don't you make hair using Blender's particles and then make a mesh conforming to that shape? It's a lot easier to make good-looking hair using particles. You see, I've tried that a couple of times, and I've never got it to look decent. I've tried it in both Blender and, well, I've tried it in Blender, ZBrush, and Maya, and I can't get hair to look good no matter how I do it. But I thought I would try this way because, at least with this way, I have control over how it's sucking. These are also going to be fairly small. They're never going to be larger than maybe 200 pixels by 200 pixels. So they don't need to look great. They just need to look less shit. But Jojo, if you have a really good hair tutorial, well, so here's the issue. When I do the hair stuff, if I'm doing it with particles, I have a really hard time getting the body of the hair to behave. Because whenever you're brushing the particles, it brushes them at all of the layers, and you end up either pushing all the particles down into the head, or you end up pulling all the particles away from the head, and it never looks like they're lying naturally. I presume that people might use some kind of physics simulation to help them with their hair, but whenever I try that, it doesn't work either. So basically, if you have a tutorial on how to use particles, and then all the way through to making a mesh out of them, I'd be happy to hear it. But at the moment, I can't say that that's something that makes sense to me. Oh, it's over there. That's a dumb place for it. So we're going to model the flyaways separately from the hair for the moment, and that's going to be fine. Put them on at the same time. We're going to unwrap this, and then we're going to select the hair mesh, and we're going to shrink it down so that it only has one of the hair objects. Let's see if I can get Blender to behave a little bit. That was strange. Let's pull this out and then take a look and make sure that we can see what we're trying to see here. I believe that we want to pull this to the side here. The Rollin says, just to put helmets on everybody, no hair. I actually considered that, but unfortunately hair is such a big part of people's personalities, you know? It's hard to say that I can just put just put helmets on and it'll still be enough of a character's personality. With hair, you can get a huge amount of difference. Hair has different volumes and textures and colors and sizes. If I was going to do that with helmets, I'd have to make helmets that were as complicated as hair. And they would become the defining characteristic of the game, I think, if I did that. It might be fun. So I tried to turn on Z transparency. I'm pretty sure I told it that the texture here influences the alpha. So why is it not working? Oh, is it translucency? No. There it is. No, that's not right. What am I forgetting how to do? There's something very, very basic that you do to make this actually turn transparent, and I can't remember it. I'm sorry, I'm just no good with materials in Blender. I would think that this would work. The texture panel. Well, I already have it selected here. It's just not... Oh, is image mapping? Is this it? No. Well, I found the RGB multiplier here, so I could go ahead and make it red, but I don't want to at the moment. I guess I could. I'll just... No? Yeah, that's fine. Leave it like that, because I might screw it up otherwise. What I don't understand is why I can't figure out... I know I've done this literally dozens of times, but for some reason I can't remember how it works. I'm just brilliant like that. I thought for sure it was just turn on transparency, but maybe I'm thinking of cycles. Well, I can't do this without the transparency. It just doesn't work. Should I switch over to cycles and try again? Well, if I do that, I have to build the nodes. I don't really feel like doing that. I should be able to get it to work here in Blender Render. There should just be a frigging basic option. Jojo Jet says that it's so obsolete that he has no idea. Yep, you're right. And I'm waiting for Eevee to come out, because then I'll learn Blender again, or Blender materials again. But for now, I'm just going to look it up. Blender Render Transparent Alpha. On the Materials tab, go to Transparency and activate For fuck's sake, that's the same thing I did. Oh, great. Of course, I forgot. Blender's defaults are always wrong. I completely forgot about that. So, in case you missed it, the problem was that for some reason Blender defaults to, yes, I would like to use the transparency of the image plus 100% for the transparency of the object. Okay, whatever, it's fine. Now you can see that there is some smearing going on here. That's just some stuff that's not going to be visible in Unity, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Yeah, Jojo says that there's a lot of easier ways to do it in cycles that don't involve actually defining the material. That's fine. At this point, I've got the basics working. It doesn't really matter. So what we're going to do is we are going to just start to use flyaway cards. And I guess the easiest way to do that is to set a default flyaway card up and just put it back here. Now, when you do this, the basic idea behind this is that you're going to want to have these flyaways look like hair, and that's not as easy as it might sound. But that should be okay. We'll just do something like this and then tell it to smooth them. And then we can just create lots and lots of copies and put them in the right spot at the right size just to see if we can get it to work. Because this is the basicest kind of hair. It's just a buzz cut basically. And the only problem with it right now is that the hair is actually there's only one kind of sun, and it's only being lit from the front, not the back. The actual hair material will need to have probably a shader which allows for lighting from both directions, which is something I'll probably have to build, but I don't know how to build the part where it renders the sheen correctly, that thing that looks like a CD when you shine light on it. Can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but I need to be able to render that as well, and I don't really know how. So all I'm doing is throwing together a placeholder and trying to remember how this stuff works, and then we will go in and put the specifics in at a later time once I have a basic setup working, right? Now, I believe that you can actually paint these in. I know you can in ZBrush. I don't know whether you can in Blender, but I'd be surprised if you couldn't. There's probably a way. I don't happen to know it. Is there a paint mode? No, none of those is going to do it. Well, if you happen to know, let me know. You don't need the node tree, and maybe you can have those hair meshes conform to a curve using a modifier. I'm not sure what that would get me. The closest I can think of is that what I might do is have this thing grow from each of the edges, a whole bunch of them, but I don't believe that I know how to do that. If I were to just add in a conform here, we could do, well, I don't have a curve. Not really sure yet. I'm just getting started with this. It's been literally 5 years since I did any hair modeling, so this is me with baby steps. You know, it's going to look like it. The Rellen votes for Dragon Ball hair. Well, if I want Dragon Ball hair, I don't even need any flyaways. I can just make it out of solid mesh, because the Dragon Ball hair doesn't have any flyaways. It's only got opaque elements. And I know that there are some people who can make that look good. I have seen a whole bunch of people do anime style or cartoon style. It's not even anime. Cartoon style hair with no flyaways. I think I've tried that in ZBrush, but I can't get it to look good with, well, you know what? Maybe I should try that. Watch, ZBrush is going to try and advertise to me too. Everything has tried to advertise to me. Clip Studio Paint wanted to know if I wanted to buy Clip Studio Paint because it's on sale apparently. I may already own it. No thanks. Don't need that crap. Just need this crap. Okay, so this is... Oh, that's not what I wanted. Great. I seem to have... I opened it, and now somehow it's not in the tools, even though it's here on the screen. We're just going to try that again, I think. All right, so go away, edit. Why can't I edit this? So it seems to have saved. Wow, that's strange. I've already edited this dozens of times, and it's worked fine for all of those times, but now when I'm on screen, it seems to have saved it to the backdrop and not saved the tool. That's friggin' weird. Let me go ahead and not do that then. You know what? I'm going to put you back to Phoenix Wright for a second while I try and figure that out. Give me a moment. The Relin says, in Dark Souls, they have several copies of the opaque hair model and copy the texture on them with transparency, and it looks okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into how they do it, but I do know that this isn't working. I don't know why. You'd think that the tools would be saved, so... Okay, that was strange. I just had to go into Recent and grab it from Recent. I'm not sure why they were being a pain in the ass about it. Yeah, that should be fine. And now I can see the thing here. And so what we can do is we can, in theory, just add in a new subtool. And we'll create a new one. Append. That didn't work. Come on, seriously? Let me select the sphere. Boom. Oh my god! Ah! That's fine, don't worry. We can adjust your spherical head to the size we want. If we scale it down, move it up. And now we'll get started with the sculpting, because who doesn't love to sculpt hair? Me. So, this is still pink. That's fine. 10Chaos1 came by. Hello. Jojo Jet says, what if you skip Blender and just program a particle hair system for Unity? I actually bought a particle hair system for Unity, but it creates, it bakes down to flyaways, and it doesn't bake down to core body. It only bakes down to flyaways, and that's a no-go. You need to have the core hair mass in order for any of this to work out. Because if you're just doing it with the body, or just doing it with flyaways, then you need to have thousands of flyaways. And it gets worse the longer your hair is. So basically, I got stuff that's okay for fur and for buzz cuts, and that's it. And that was a real disappointment. I was hoping that I'd be able to use it for everything, and I couldn't. Is this move or grab? I think it's move. Yeah, there it is. And we'll just make sure that we've got x-axis mirroring, and we'll just move stuff into place. Normally, I use my tablet while I'm doing this, and I'm going to have to switch to it relatively soon, I think. And now we look like a character from Yakuza 0. Jojo Jet recommends I spend 7 years programming it to do exactly what I want. Yep, I have actually created custom hair and clothing rendering kits in the past, but those were like in my college years, back before you could even do 3D rendering with any sort of real speed, and so they were all about optimizations, and they were never built to look great. But these days, you don't need those kinds of optimizations, and the tricks I was using are actually like, you don't want to do that because it looks bad. So, I'll use whatever the recommendation is from the industry. They all do it pretty well. And as far as I can tell, what they recommend is having a central hair body and then breaking that up with a bunch of flyaways. Now here in ZBrush, I don't know how to do flyaways. But what I might be able to do is create the hair using a high definition sculpting kit and then bake that to a texture and go with opaque hair. Let's just give it a shot and see what sort of a visual we get out of it. So to do that, I'm going to move everything around again and pick up my tablet, my pen, and we are going to switch down here into subdiv mode. Now there's a hotkey for that, Control D. So we're just going to put in a couple of subdiv levels, and not too many at this point. And we're going to use DS brush, which is the damn standard. And the damn standard brush is kind of nice because it creates these really, really sharp edges, as you can see. Which means that when we scrabble onto this, we can get some texture out of it. Now the problem with this is that what the top of the head looks like is mysterious when there are flyaways. If you can't use flyaways, but you have a spiky top of the head, it's going to look terrible. Now, the reason anime hair is it works in the ways it works is because it doesn't have those kinds of flyaways. Instead, all of anime hair is either spikes or combed, or both. So basically, that means that we would do something like this instead of having the top being flyaways. And that's a limiting factor, but if it makes things easy to do, I'm welcoming it, at least for the moment. So we're just going to quickly model in all of these creases, and then, oh, come on, seriously? Is there a way to lock? I think there is a way to lock the scroll, but I can't remember how to do it, and I don't see it here. That's going to make it pretty tough. Will the top of the head ever be shown? Yes. Not necessarily completely top down. That would be a little bit unusual. But there are going to be a lot of... So a big part of what makes a character stand out as unique is the camera angle at which they're shot. So we're going to have some characters that do get shot from a high camera angle. Something like this, So we are going to be seeing the top of someone's head, enough to see if they've got a bald spot. We're not probably going to be looking down straight down from above, but it'll be enough that people will notice if it doesn't really work. So what we're going to do is we're just going to scratch out some elements using the damn standard brush here. And then we're going to switch to a different texture. Now, I'm not sure whether or not they have a scrape brush. There's so many brushes, and all of them are super, super specific purpose. Here's a rake brush. Let's see if that'll work. Oh, it actually is inverted. That's not bad. Oh, behave yourself. There we are. That might be a little bit too intense. Let's bring the intensity down. There we go. Let's see if I can bring the size down. And basically all I'm trying to do is get a couple layers of hair pattern, because that's what's going to actually be visible when we save the setup. So just now, as I said, don't really know what I'm doing. So if you're just tuning in here, I am completely bullshitting this. And if you know how to do it and you've done it before, let me know. Did I switch subtools or did I combine subtools? What just happened? Yeah, let's not edit the head. Let's just edit the hair. So with this in mind, let's go ahead and just put in a little bit of roughness at the edge. And then we'll try and curve back with a move brush. Just push this top back a little bit because it's a little bit too high for combed back hair. All right, so let's go ahead and try and export this mesh and the texture of that mesh. So to do that, we're going to use the Z plugins. There is an FBX exporter here. and we're going to want to have it export the hair. This may end up exporting both, but that's fine. So let me go ahead and while I fiddle with files, I'll turn you back to Phoenix Wright so that people can think this is a Phoenix Wright stream. And so export. Okay, interesting. Excuse me. All right, bring it back. And that should have an FBX export. Now, I'm not sure how much... Oh, you know what? That's going to be at maximum density. Hold on. I got to bring that down to low density. I don't want a 10,000... Yeah, look, there are 2 million total points in this hair. I don't need that many verts. Let's go ahead and bring this down to the lowest SDiv level and try that again. So if we go over into our program and we take a look, there's our hair slicked back. Drop it into the game world. It's off somewhere. Let's drop it into the photo booth and then put it here so that we can friggin' see it. There we go. And then pull it out, and then we'll just scale it up until we can view it. Yoink. Where is it? I don't see anything. It's a sphere. What? Oh, here it is. This. I want this. Okay, well, let's go ahead and... It should be that. Why is it not showing up? Is it really big? Is it really small? What's going on here? Oh, it's just really, really small. Okay. I guess that's fine for now. I was probably exporting it with millimeters. That's not what I expected, but whatever. So we'll just move this back down to 1,000 exactly. That should line it up. No, that's 100. That's 1,000. All right, so right now the material doesn't make any sense. We don't have a material for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down into the hair material, create the hair. We're going to call this slicked back, a hair slicked back. We're going to drop it on, like so. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go over into here, and we're going to export the textures for this hair. And we're going to want a couple different kinds of textures. So we're going to want, we don't need the texture from Polypaint, but we do need the normal and the ambient occlusion. So that's what we're going to get. We're going to have a map size that's only 1024. I don't think we need the full, yeah, we'll just click that. I don't think we need the full setup for that. Yeah, we're going to call this hair slicked back. That's clicked back, not quite the same. Licked back. And we'll put that in materials hair. Save. Jojo Jet says, yo, her skin is really rough. That's actually just a temporary skin placeholder I created. So yeah. Oh, you mean so these, this super, super rough skin is actually not visible in the game mode at the same level, but it's something that can be easily edited and changed. Now, the reason she's got really rough skin is because I didn't edit it at all. But that's something that is easy to fix. So if it's bothering you, we can go over there, and we're still using the default render, or this default shader, which is not the shader that you actually want for skin. I bought 2 skin shaders, and they're both broken. So fuck that. I'll figure something out. But it's just totally obnoxious when you're trying to do something and you're like, I'll pay money for this. And it's like, no, screw you. It doesn't work. It's like, oh, come on, you assholes. All right, so now hair. We've got these hair slicked back elements. And so what we're going to do is we're going to drop them in. Normal map fix, and then AO. And then, why have we got this weird chattering? That's a strange visual. That export really did a number, didn't it? Maybe I have to export at one level higher in order to be able to get this to work at all, because that is awful. It's like spiky. That doesn't make any sense. Why is it spiky? I guess it's showing up as spiky here. That's strange. Okay, we'll go ahead with level 2, but you can see how it's still spiky. That's super weird. Well, we'll go ahead and export it at this level and see whether or not we can get that to work. People, slick back hair. Yes, please. Recalc normals, the Roland says. I don't know how to recalc. The problem is that here in ZBrush, it's interpreting the lower density hair as having spikes, like just ribbed. And you can see that it's not really the normals. It's baked right into the hair itself, the hair mesh itself. You see? It's like spook, 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 spook. That doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what it turned out to be. I have had troubles with ZBrush doing that sort of thing before. This is still pretty spiky. But I could recalculate the normals. Maybe that will help. Let's go ahead and... The problem is that I believe that what I really need to do is make the normals equal to the vector from the center. And I don't know that Unity actually allows for me to do that by default. I think I need to do that with like an operation. So if we want to, we will import... Well, I could change the scaling. I don't need to. The normal import calculate. Normals mode. Let's see what normals mode we've got. Oh, nope, no from center. So we'll just go ahead and apply that. That's a little bit better. It hides the nubbliness of it considerably. But I don't really understand what's going on with the hair material. The hair material should be you see how the normal map really isn't... Look at this normal map. So I created the normal map and it didn't work. And I think what the problem might be is that I forgot to UV unwrap, but I didn't... I must have to UV unwrap it if I make it here. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to just go down into UV unwrapping. And we're going to tell it to create. No, I guess it's maybe here under Z plugin, UV master. Could you unwrap that, please? Grind, grind, grind. There we go. Now we're going to do all of that crap again. So we'll go back up to geometry, or we'll have to start with here, I guess. So export the hair, because that'll actually have the UV map on it. And then we will change the geometry to max subdiv. Oh, I accidentally exported it at 1 subdiv instead of 2. Try that again. FBX exported at 2 subdivs today. And then we're going to just go all the way up to max and then tell it to export the multi-maps I need. Now the problem is that these two are actually not going to get overwritten. It refuses to overwrite these things. So even though it's asking me if I want to overwrite it, what it means is I'm going to create more completely different objects. So you can see how there are now multiple objects here, which is not really at all interesting. It's not what we wanted. It's just Blender or ZBrush refusing to overwrite. There we go. That's right. That's more like what I have in mind. Obviously, it's wrong, but it's wrong in the right way, which is important. So if we bring the normal map down from 50 times normal, we can go back down to 1 here. You can see what the normal map looks like. Is we've got the actual hair bits running along it. Now, if we were to take the smoothness down and to change the color to something darker, it's not going to look good. But no, it's definitely not going to look good. What I really need to do is, if I'm going to do this kind of toon hair, I really need to have a different shader. I don't think I can just use the shader for this. I would need to, at the very least, paint in the shadows let's go ahead and try that. Let's go over into ZBrush and tell it to select the shadows. Mask, 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 mask. Mask the cavities. And then we will just invert that. And then we will paint with a darker shade like this. I'm actually not 100% sure that that's getting the areas I want. Nope, I did it backwards. So we're going to undo, 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 undo. There we are. And paint this half instead. I'm doing this with my mouse, so it's a little bit difficult, but that's okay. And now if I were to clear it... Wait, is that still backwards? Okay, so hold on. Mask by cavity, please. Paint. Clear. So that's backwards. Okay, so mask by cavity, flip. Paint. Clear. Okay, so that's right. I don't know exactly what was going on before, but I was right the first time. It just didn't turn out right for some reason. Maybe it did, and I just missaw it. Either way, if we were to clear that, you can see how the insides are now a darker shade. This is really a very, very rough way to do it. It's not how I recommend. But if we then turn the alpha on for here and then paint along here, we can start to get some fun values out of it. The problem being, of course, that this is a second set on top of the first set. It's not connected to the actual topology of the hair in the slightest. It might have been better if what I'd done is, back when we started, if I had started by painting things in while I was doing the cutting, I could also have been doing the painting. I just didn't think of it. I'm not at all sure that this is the right thing to do, but it's okay. We're just kind of playing around at this point. I should look up some more hair tutorials. I've done a lot of hair tutorial looking up, but it's been so long and I didn't bother to look them up again because I wanted to see how it felt without a tutorial. People sometimes rush into having tutorials and sometimes that doesn't feel right. You know, trying to learn something before you know what you don't know. It never really worked with me. So we're going to go ahead and export. I didn't really want to name it P1 TIFF, whatever, but that's fine. I would have had to rename this crap anyway. Back over here, and let's drop it in. And let's bring this albedo up. Not great. Not great. No, that's pretty crap. Now, if I changed it so the normals were pointing out from the center, you know what? Let's go ahead and see how it'll look, because that's something I'm going to have to do eventually. I might as well serve it up piping hot. So we're going to create a new script, which will be under crew here. Morphs. Create C# script. Normal breaker. Let's open that up. And what we're going to do here is we are going to have it point at a mesh, public mesh. And here in any given function, public void go. We should probably call it something else, like, I guess go is fine. I'm used to not using go because it's a keyword in so many languages, but I don't believe it's a keyword in C#. No, it's not. Cool. So I'm going to make this a menu item. Hey, look! Did you guys know that there is an update available? Like every day? There's always an update available, and it really wants you to know that. So what we're going to do here in Go is we've got the Visual Studio Code was so excited to tell me about the upgrade that it broke. So we're going to save this, close it, reopen it. What happened? Where did I go? There. All right, so now it should work. And this is just going to go through the mesh and fix it. So We're going to grab the vert list and the list. Oh, it's just, sorry, just no, there. Yeah, it's got a name, a go. So we're going to need the vert list, and we're also going to need the an empty array. So vector3 array, fuck you, verts equals mesh.get verts, get vertices. It actually insists on putting them in a list. That's weird. Can I just say mesh.verts? Yeah, that's fine. And then we're going to go ahead and say vector3 normals equals new vector3 verts.length. For int a equals 0, a is less than verts dot length a plus plus, and then we'll go ahead and say normals a equals verts a dot normalized, and then at the end we'll actually apply it mesh dot normals equals normals. We could use mesh dot set normals, but it actually insists on a list, so we're not going to do that. And then we're going to just say mesh dot. So there is a recalculate normals function, and we're not going to want that. So I think we're just going to leave it like this and see whether this works. So we're going to go over into the hair. Grind, grind, grind. There we go. Drop the normal breaker onto the hair and tell it to do that. Now, obviously, this will not work repeatedly, because every time we re-import, we're going to get the raw values. We're only editing the one that's in RAM. But I just want to see how it looks, so we're going to try it. Go. So this is what it looks like when your normals no longer have any weight, or when they're pointed straight out. This is a trick you normally use for foliage, but you can use it for hair if you're lazy. And so that's what we did. We're going to take a look down here at the hair. If we turn on any of these values like smoothness, you can see how it is approximating a perfect circle. If we look at it in terms of the game world, we can't see the right place. That's interesting. What's going on here? Why can't I see the hair? Oh, because it's not in the right layer. There we are. There we go. You can see how that looks dumb, but that's fine. It looks dumb in a way that we can work with. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think this is going to work. I may have to actually do hair. That sounds like a lot of work. I wish I could go over 1 with the occlusion map. I don't know why I can't. Yeah, so basically the problem is that hair has a very, very specific look. It has a lot of very special stuff going on with it. And you need to have a special hair shader, and even more than skin. You need a special hair shader unless you're going full tune. And guess what? I don't have a special hair shader. I can look one up, but I don't have one right now. For now, however, let's just pretend that this is how I want it to look. And we will go ahead and bind this. We'll just leave it like that. And if we take a look at how that's going to look in the game, if we hit play, we'll be able to see that character just up in the corner with hair. See? Ooh, exciting stuff, right? So that is just a hair placeholder, and it took an hour, but wasn't it fun to watch me screw up for an hour straight? That is exactly what people want out of my streams, right? So you can see that we're putting in the other photo booths, and photo booth 1 has this issue where it's not correctly synced up. So we'll just hit revert, sync it back up. 10cast1 says, why not make one with shader graph? There should be tutorials. Yeah, so the issue here for me is that there are a lot of moving pieces. I need to have a good hair mesh. I need to have a good hair texture. I need to have a good hair shader. Having to do all of that stuff on my own means that I have to understand all 3 of those pieces at the same time. And I don't understand any of those pieces right now. So either I find a good hair mesh with a good hair texture and then work on my hair shader, or I get a hair shader that already works and create some textures for it. None of these options is particularly awesome for me, but I'm going to have to do some looking around and seeing what's up. Hopefully someone who watches my stream, either now or after the fact, can chime in and say, this is a good hair tutorial. All of the hair tutorials I have are really pretty bad. They're either outdated or they're specifically for one kind of hair, and I don't really want that. I want to have a wide variety of hairs, because the point here isn't to have good hair. The point here is to have a variety of hair, because the whole point is you have to make the characters look as distinct as possible. And the only way to do that is if they have a variety of features, a variety of camera angles, a variety of backdrops, a variety of colors, and a variety of hair. So a good example of that is this. We've got somewhere in this photo booth. There it is. No, that's not it. It is... Oh, no. This was the one with the values on it, wasn't it? Can I undo the change, the reversion I did? There we are. So I believe that this had... Yeah, there's the species definition. We're going to just drop that over here on this other head. And obviously, we're going to need to assign it the local head and the local armature. But the problem is that all the bone morphs are now pointed wrong. So what we're going to need to have happen here is the ability for it to look up the correct bone morphs. If we go over here and tell it to do a morph, it's not going to hit this guy because all the bones are actually on the other model. See that? So we have to build the thing that reconnects the bones. So that's what we're going to do right now. If we take a look, there are two places that these things get defined. One is in the species definition, and the other one is in the raw morph classes. And this is where the actual work needs to be done. So in order for us to be able to do this, we're going to need to be able to find a new bone assignment. And for that, all we need to do is have a function for it. Public void reassign bone, find bone transform armature. And all we're going to do is get a list of all of the components. You know what? We're going to have it actually get past bone list, so we won't have to keep finding it. And we're just going to go through. That's not how you spell public. That's not how you spell public. There we are. We're going to go through and find the one that's named correctly. So for each transform t in bone list, if t.name equals name, then t.bone, or just bone, transform equals t. And I think that's just how it is. Yeah. And then we're going to return. Otherwise, debug.log error, couldn't find bone name in bone list. And down here in the morph bone set, we're going to do the same thing. So public void find bones, transform armature. We're just going to get a list of all the bones. Transform array bones equals transform array t's transforms equals new equals get components get equals armature dot get components in children transform true. There we go. And then we'll just pass that to each one. So for each morph bone b in bones b dot find bone transforms. There we go. That ought to do it. Now all we have to do is actually trigger it. So to do that, over here in the species definition, we are going to add in a reset bones function. Our refind bones. Remap bones? Yeah, remap bones. It's going to have a menu. Remap bones. And that's just going to pass it through. So we're going to go ahead and tell the default bone shape to find the bones with our armature in mind. And then we're going to go through each of the morphs and do the same thing. For each bone morph bone set, BS in morphs, bs.findBones, armature. There we are. And we can do that automatically if we need to, but it's mostly a debug thing, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Over here in the head, we're just going to run that. So, remap bones. And you can see how there were no complaints, and if we tell it to randomize, we actually get this correct character randomizing. Hooray! The skin textures are still completely placeholder, don't worry about them. They're actually working off of a really, really old set of textures. That's fine. We'll fix that later. Doesn't really matter. We're going to just reset this and then apply it. And then we'll just go ahead and hit play. Oh, wait, this needs to be reverted now. Now it should work. Good. We need to actually assign it to a crew member. Let's just grab the list of crew members and drop Bob into our setup. Hit play. And what we'll do is, we'll zoom out so that we actually can see something here. There we go. All of them are unrandomized, but that's not a big deal. We'll just hit pause, and we'll randomize them all in turn just to get a quick little look. Randomize. Really, I don't think you randomize correctly, but that should work. It should be something that pops into existence when we are in the actual play mode. It should just be something where the pause isn't working properly. So, yeah. It looks like Bob might be mismapped. Let's go ahead and try randomizing him again. No, it seems like it might be okay. That is a really goofy look. The morphs are completely random, so they're going to look pretty silly at the moment. So let's just go to each one in turn and see what they look like. Great. Thank you for zooming way the hell out. Well, we ended up with a somewhat unfortunate set of morphs. Let's go ahead and I think Photo Booth 1 was the one that looked goofiest. Yeah, because that one got all of the bad combos that we could have possibly gotten. I don't have any sort of setup to make them less awful. So we'll just randomize it again. That's a little bit less awful, I suppose. But anyhow, the point is that that's not the only thing that needs to be randomized. We also want to randomize the location of the camera and the color of the backdrop, both of which are things that are currently not being dealt with. And they need to be part of the character. But you know what? I'm starving. I don't know why I'm so hungry, but I'm going to have to stop and get something to eat before I die. So that's going to be enough for today, I think. I'm going to just go ahead and let you guys ask a question if you're fast. Other than that, I'm going to lament my incredibly poor performance, because that hair is awful. That's like really bad. Wow, that's bad hair. I don't think I can get away with this kind of hair. I'm going to have flyaways. And that means I'm going to have a hair texture and a special shader. Well, I'll figure it out. See you folks around next time. I should be back on Wednesday, assuming that there is not another sudden surge of business videos. There might be, because they're all due on Thursday. So on Wednesday, I might be recording a crap ton of them. So forgive me if I'm not around this Wednesday, but oh crap. I actually have a dentist appointment too. Well, this is going to be a fun week for my voice. See you folks around.